They say time heals all wounds, but some wounds never heal. Maria stood at her kitchen sink, hands deep in soapy water, as rain drummed against the windows. It was late, almost midnight, and the house was quiet. Her husband, Daniel, was upstairs already asleep, the kids too. It had been a long day at the office, and this moment, alone, calm, safe, was a rare gift. And then the knock came. 3 slow knocks. Not loud, but firm, like someone was unsure they had the right house. She froze. Who knocks this late? She dried her hands, walked cautiously to the door, and looked through the peephole. A man, soaked in rain, head bowed, long brown hair stuck to his forehead. His coat was torn, his shoes were barely holding together. He looked homeless. Maria hesitated. Something about him felt strange, not dangerous, but familiar. She opened the door just a crack. "Can I help you?" The man lifted his head slowly, his eyes locked on hers. And then, in a voice rough with cold and time, he said, "Maria, it's me, Jake." Her breath caught in her throat. No, it couldn't be. Jake was dead. He died 8 years ago in a military operation overseas. They said his vehicle was ambushed. There was a funeral, a folded flag, a medal, a coffin. She stared at him, unable to speak. "Maria," he said again, softer this time. "I came back." She nearly fainted. Jake. Her Jake. The man she'd married at 24, the man who promised to build a life with her, the father of her children, the man she buried. And now, here he stood, alive, scarred, and very much real. "Jake?" she whispered, stepping back. This can't be." He nodded, his eyes filled with tears. "I know how it sounds, but please, can I come in?" She didn't know why, but she let him. They sat in silence for what felt like hours. Jake didn't try to hug her. He didn't cry. He just sat, hunched over, hands trembling slightly, staring at the floor. "I was captured," he said finally. "It wasn't an ambush. It was a setup. Someone sold us out. We were taken alive, a few of us. I was held somewhere in Eastern Europe. I don't even know where, for years." Maria's hands shook. She poured him tea, but he barely touched it. "How did you get out?" "Prison transfer. Something went wrong. There was chaos. I escaped, made it back to the U.S. 2 months ago. But by then," he looked around the house, "I saw the reports, the death notice, the funeral, and then I found out about him." Maria swallowed hard. Daniel, her new husband, the man who helped her rebuild her life, who raised the kids as his own, who stood by her during the darkest days. Jake looked at Maria, didn't know what to say. She still couldn't process what was happening. Her mind raced. The children, what would they think? Could she even believe this? So she did the only thing she could. She asked for proof. The next morning, Jake took a DNA test. He left quietly after that. He didn't argue, didn't beg, just said, "I'll be nearby, just in case. You don't owe me anything, Maria." 3 days later, the results came back. 99.98% match. Jake, alive, real, undeniable. Maria's world shattered for the second time. Because now, she had to ask herself a question no one should ever face. Can you mourn someone who's still alive? And if you've moved on, built a new life, found new love, what happens when the past comes knocking? Maria stared at the DNA report for hours. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. The paper was real, the seal official, the name unmistakable. Jake. She walked into the living room, sat on the couch, and stared at the family photo above the fireplace. Her, Daniel, and the kids at the beach last summer, smiling, whole, normal. But that photo, it had replaced another one, the one that used to be there, her and Jake, on their wedding day, laughing under the trees. Her life had been rewritten, and now both versions were staring at each other in her head, colliding, impossible to separate. When Daniel came home from work that evening, she told him everything. He didn't believe it, at first. "That's impossible," he said quietly. "Jake's dead, Maria. You told me yourself. You buried him." She handed him the report, watched his face change as he read it. I don't understand," he murmured. "So, what does this mean?" Maria didn't have an answer. That night, they barely spoke. The house felt haunted, not by a ghost, but by memory. And then, the next morning, Jake showed up again. Not at her door this time, at the school. Her daughter Emma recognized him. She'd been 3 when he disappeared. She didn't remember his face, but somehow something clicked. She saw him sitting on the bench outside and walked up to him, curious. "Do I know you?" Jake smiled sadly. "You look just like your mother when she was your age." Emma tilted her head. "You know my mom?" Before he could answer, a teacher noticed. Security was called. Maria's phone rang 5 minutes later. When she got there, Jake was already gone. Later that evening, Daniel was furious. "He can't do that. He can't just show up and approach our daughter like that." Maria wanted to argue, wanted to defend Jake, but she couldn't, because Daniel was right. Even if Jake was her first husband, even if he was Emma's biological father, he was still a stranger now. 8 years of silence had built a wall, and no matter how deep the past ran, the present couldn't just be erased. But her heart wasn't so sure. That night, Maria found herself digging through an old box in the garage, the one with Jake's letters, photos, the military medals, the watch he gave her before his last deployment. And at the very bottom, a letter, unopened, postmarked from 3 weeks ago, from Jake. Her hands trembled as she opened it. "Maria, if you're reading this, I guess I found you. Or maybe you found me. I don't know what I'm supposed to say. 8 years is a long time. Maybe you've moved on. Maybe you hate me. I just want you to know, I never stopped trying to come home. I never stopped thinking about you and the kids. If this is the last time you hear from me, please know that I'm proud of the life you've built. I'm not asking for anything. I just needed to see that you're okay. That's all. Jake." She cried. For the first time since he returned, really cried. Not because he was alive, not because he'd found her, but because she didn't know how to love 2 lives at once. 3 days later, she made a decision. She called Jake. "Meet me tomorrow, 5 p.m., by the old pier." She didn't know what she was going to say, or if she'd be able to say anything at all. But she knew this. Some stories don't end when the last chapter is written. Sometimes they wait, in silence, until the right page turns again. The pier was almost empty when Maria arrived. The sun was low, casting long shadows over the wooden planks. Waves slapped gently against the beams beneath her feet, and the cries of seagulls echoed somewhere in the distance. She hadn't been here in years. Not since that last summer with Jake, before the deployment. Back when she still believed that love, once found, could never be taken away. Jake was already there, sitting at the edge, legs dangling over the side, staring out at the gray-blue water. He turned when he heard her footsteps. "Hey," he said, his voice softer than she remembered. "Hey," she replied, pulling her coat tighter around her. For a long moment, neither of them said anything. Then Jake broke the silence. "I shouldn't have come to the school. I'm sorry." Maria nodded. "It scared Emma. I just wanted to see her, one more time. I wasn't thinking clearly." Maria sat beside him, not too close, but not far either. "She doesn't remember you. I know." There was another pause. "I read your letter," she said. Jake looked down. "I meant every word. I know." The wind picked up. A flock of birds rose into the sky and spun above them before drifting away toward the horizon. "I don't even know who I am anymore," Jake said quietly. "They kept us in darkness most of the time. No names, no clocks, no sound. I didn't speak for weeks, months sometimes. I stopped counting time. I stopped hoping." Maria's throat tightened. "I only held on to one thing," he added, glancing at her. "You." Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them away. "I built a life, Jake. After they told me you were gone, I had to. I know. I remarried. Daniel's been good to me, to the kids. I'm not here to destroy that." She looked at him then, really looked. He was thinner than before, a little older, the lines on his face deeper, but the eyes, they were still his. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do," she whispered. Jake nodded. Neither do I, but I had to give you the truth. After everything, you deserved at least that. Maria closed her eyes. I buried you. I know. I cried myself to sleep for months. I couldn't eat, couldn't breathe. And then I met Daniel. He didn't try to fix me. He just waited. That's a good man. He is. He sat in silence again. This time it felt less heavy. I don't want to make your life harder, Jake said at last. I guess I needed closure. I needed to know you were happy. Maria looked at the horizon. The sky had turned amber, with streaks of violet above the water. I was, she said, but now I'm not sure what I am anymore. Jake stood up slowly, brushing dust from his jeans. I'll go, he said. I have nothing left to offer except a broken past. Maybe that's not fair to you. Maria stood too. Her heart was pounding. But maybe, she said, you deserve more than just being a ghost in someone else's life. He looked at her. She took a breath. Let's not decide anything tonight. Let's just take this one step at a time. Like strangers, maybe, starting over. Jake gave a soft, sad smile. I'd like that. That night, Maria told Daniel everything. She was honest about her confusion, about her guilt, about her heart feeling split between two lives. Daniel sat quietly for a long time, then finally said, I love you, but I won't force you to stay out of obligation. If your heart belongs to him, I need to know. Maria shook her head. It's not about choosing one over the other. It's about finding a way to live with the truth. He nodded, but the pain in his eyes told her everything. This wasn't going to be easy for any of them. But she wasn't going to run from it. Not anymore. The days that followed were strange. Not painful, not exactly, but weighted. Every step Maria took felt like walking across a rope stretched between two lives. She met Jake twice more, quietly, without the children, without Daniel. They talked, walked, sat on opposite ends of benches and tried to find language for things that didn't have names. Grief that never had a grave. Love that had no home anymore. Jake told her about the prison camp, about how he'd escaped, about the 2 years it took to even make it back to U.S. soil, about the silent war inside him ever since. I still wake up thinking I'm chained to a wall, he admitted. And sometimes I dream of you, and it hurts worse than any wound. Maria didn't know how to respond, so she just reached over and held his hand. It was the first time they touched since that day on the pier. Meanwhile, at home, Daniel was struggling. He tried to act normal, kept making breakfast, dropping the kids off, folding laundry at night. But Maria could see it. The silence, the stiffness. He was trying to be generous, trying to be good. But love, when tested by time, doesn't always stretch. Sometimes it tears. And then Emma asked, Mom, who's that man? Maria paused, heart hammering. What man, sweetheart? The one I saw you talking to at the lake. He looks like me. Maria's breath caught. She glanced at Daniel, who had gone still. So it was time. She had to tell them. That night she gathered the children, Emma, Eli. Daniel sat across from them, his jaw tight. Maria took a breath. I need to tell you a story about someone very important, someone I thought was gone forever. She told them about Jake, carefully, gently, no drama, just truth. How he had once been her husband, how he was Emma's father, how he disappeared in a war and was believed dead, and how now he was back. Emma was silent for a long time. Then, so, who is Dad? Daniel looked at her with eyes full of pain and love. I'm your dad, and I always will be. That's never going to change. She nodded slowly and then surprised them all. Can I meet him? Just once. Maria blinked. Are you sure? Emma nodded again. He's part of our story, right? I want to know where I come from. The meeting was quiet, awkward, but not painful. Jake was nervous. Emma was curious. They talked about music, favorite books, her science project. He brought her a gift, a small carved box from a market overseas, and when she opened it, she found a folded paper crane inside. I learned origami while I was away, Jake said, smiling softly. It helped keep me sane. Emma held it like it was made of glass. Maria watched them from the kitchen window, tears in her eyes. She didn't know what future looked like, but she knew this was the right step. A month later, the papers arrived. Maria and Daniel signed them together. The divorce wasn't bitter, just sad, like a book you loved deeply but knew had reached its final page. He hugged her before he left the house for the last time. "Find your peace," he whispered. "I hope you do too," she said. Jake didn't move in right away. They took their time. He joined a veteran support group, started writing, volunteered at a youth shelter downtown. He and Maria rebuilt slowly, not trying to recapture the past, but build something new, honest, grown from the cracks. Emma visited him once a week. Eli was slower to warm up, but Jake never pushed. Maria finally began to sleep through the night again, not with guilt, but with quiet. And one day, almost a year later, as they were walking through the farmer's market, Jake paused beside a little jewelry booth. He picked up a small silver ring with a knot symbol. "It's not an engagement ring," he said, a shy grin on his face. "Good," Maria replied with a smirk, "because I'd say no." Jake laughed. "But maybe it could be a promise that we don't run anymore from life, from each other." She took the ring, slipped it on, and whispered, "Deal." They walked home together, not as a couple lost in tragedy, but as two people who'd faced the unimaginable and survived. Because sometimes love doesn't follow rules, it breaks them, it shatters them, and then quietly, patiently rebuilds. Sometimes life doesn't go the way we plan. It tears through us, leaves scars, and writes chapters we never asked for. But that doesn't mean the story is over. Because even in the ashes of what once was, something new can grow, something stronger, something wiser. Maria's journey wasn't just about love. It was about truth, about facing the past, making peace with it, and having the courage to start again. We all carry broken pieces, but when we choose to face them, not run, not hide, we discover something powerful, that healing is possible, that second chances are real, and that the life we thought was lost might still be waiting for us. What would you do if someone you lost walked back into your life? Would you open the door or leave it locked forever? Let us know in the comments. And if this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who still believes in redemption. Because sometimes, the most incredible stories are the ones we live through.